Middle. Cop.
Habs!
Oh, he brought it back. He brought it back. We are high right now, John. I'll be totally honest. I am extremely high. Extraordinarily high.
I might have just floated by you, bro. Might have just floated by you. Talk about a game. Talk about a football game. You know, football, guy. Football. We're playing football in Dallas. Football.
That was drugs, John. That was drugs.
It just doesn't get much better in the National Football League, Cowboys-Niners, and whatever the hell we just witnessed, because that was fucking bananas. And we had some cash on it, but it wasn't even. That was bananas. Sweet bananas. That was sweet.
Romo might need to change his pants.
I can see why Aikman was pissed, you know? Does it make sense? I mean, what do you think? Romo's audience was triple when it was watching it?
I mean,
I went second TV. I went second TV early game by about the third quarter. I'm like, this is so stupid.
What, you could watch Georgetown Xavier? What
I've been watching. I think it's called like Mayor of Kingstown or something.
Oh,
Jeremy Renner.
Niner fan.
It's good. It is really good.
We are live on YouTube. To everybody, hello on YouTube on Sunday. If you're listening to this podcast after the fact, it is great to have you there. It is great to have everybody. It's just good to be here. We watched probably the last 5 minutes of the game together, just hanging, and it was pretty incredible, John. Pretty incredible.
The last 5 minutes, which I'm sure we'll dive into, less than 5 minutes. I mean, the last 20 minutes of the game, which were under the 2 minutes in the actual game.
Yeah.
Bananas. What is was it Iggy that said BANANAS? Bananas? Remember that song?
Is that Iguodala? Oh, Iggy Pop?
No.
Andre Iguodala?
No.
Iggy Azalea?
Yes, Swaggy P's ex-girlfriend, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It might not. Was it her? BANANA. You know that song?
You might need to keep singing it.
I don't. I mean, that's about as far as I go there, Jimmy.
This show is sponsored in part by MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number one. MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number one. Where if you use that promo code, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. If you do accept the bonus, remember you have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. You can also decline the bonus. Either way, Ham one. Let them know we sent you, and we are back, baby. We are back.
You know, when about lunchtime yesterday, guy, we had $18 in our account. $18.
We're like the story of one of those businessmen down to his last buck.
Yeah, what's it? The Rock $7 production, or the dude Arthur Smith's dad that had like $20,000 that he went to Vegas. We had $18. We now have $1,900. We can get aggressive moving forward. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Obviously, if you want a live bet, if you're listening to this, Chiefs game's about to kick off, but you got a Monday night game right around the corner, which I really have no feel for, but I can't wait to watch. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Get your gamble on, Gwen Stefani.
Something Gwen or Black Eyed Peas.
No, it was Stefani for sure. That was my bad.
+4. Cardinals +4 on Monday Night Football.
I kind of like the Rams.
I do too. As you said, we are doing the show before the Steelers-Chiefs game. Not a ton of respect for Pittsburgh here on the show today, which is why we're doing this.
Well, even Ben said they can't win.
Ben did say they can't win. Andy said they're the 1 seed, though.
Well, it's why you play mental warfare back and forth. It's like ping pong, you know? It's like, oh, you can't win? I think it's the best Pittsburgh Steeler team since 1976. That's what I would give back. I would just keep giving it back.
Did you break down the parlay for people?
Oh, yeah. We had the Raiders, Bengals under, and we had, the easiest night of the easiest game of the year. I mean, the Buffalo Bills -4.
Credit to you.
That was more fun that we did the money line on the Niners, so that was more exhilarating.
Yeah, and the number part of that parlay, the number on the Raider Bengal game was 49. Was
49. We were getting close. We were getting close. It was close. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Yeah.
Also, DraftKings, baby. DraftKings. Go to DraftKings right now. Sign up with the code HAM. We will have another game this week. Part of me wonders, should we do like a Monday night only game? Currently in our game with Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football to be played in the Haberman and Middlecoff DraftKings League, Ali 832 is in first place, but not a lot of people left. I'm in 19th place. My lineup: Burrow, Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans got me 29.7 points today.
He's pretty good.
What's your current status?
Don't even worry about it. My team sucks. I hate fantasy, but we'll play again. 4 teams this weekend. Download the DraftKings app. Promo code HAM. Pretty easy. You just build your team. Quarterback, a couple running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, defense. Be better at it than me because I'm fucking terrible. I never know who to pick. And I just give you free money. So if you get in our games, if you win, you'll just take my money for sure. Haberman's sneaky. He'll be in the mix every once in a while. But download the DraftKings app. Promo code HAM. You can win millions of dollars in prizes. You can play in other games. Coming down the home stretch here, guy, not much football left, right? I mean, there's only a couple more weekends of this until we'll probably have to transition to like the Masters. So download the DraftKings app. Promo code HAM. Get your ability to share at $1 million every round of the NFL playoffs. I guess we're not quite in round 2 because the NFL's got the curveball this Monday night game. Throwing me off.
Yeah, no, and you're right. The golf is pretty exciting, but sign up with code HAM. Sign up with code HAM. Yep, make your lineup. Your shot at millions of dollars of prizes every round. Yes. We love it. It's here. It's a joy. It's a blast. It's a blast. We got to start with the end of that game, Niners Cowboys. It was wild. I mean, it's a game of inches. It's a game of milliseconds, John. And you and I were talking as the game was ending. I had full confidence. You had full confidence that the Niners weren't going to let the Cowboys score there. How about some of those defenses they were rolling out? 15-yard cushions, then the sideline defense that Dak ran against. That was quite a display of nosebleed D.
Guy, they got down like 60 yards pretty easily in 20 seconds. That, I guess we could rewind it a little bit, right? To the 3rd and 10, or 3rd and 11 maybe it was, that ultimately Kyle Shanahan ran that play to Deebo. I give him credit on that. That was, like, ultimately, that was a curveball that the Cowboys didn't see coming. That was a fucking sweet play, right? The little fake to Mitchell, pitch to Deebo, little, dudes leading in front. That was nuts. I mean, the game was over until it wasn't. And then a little reminiscent of Cowboys-Raiders index card. Maybe a little wider gap.
Yeah.
But there was a gap. I think I'll give them. I think they got the play right. From the angles that we could see, it looked like he was short. So then we're live looking at each other. I'm sure people, what do? Do you punt? Do you go for it? I give Kyle credit. He's got fucking some nuts. Because I don't think going for it is just a lock call there with 40 seconds and you give the ball. I mean, think how they have explosive offensive players, right? A touchdown, you lose. I give him credit on the. I was pro punt.
You were pro punt?
I was pro punt. Yeah, I think I was.
Okay. You didn't say that.
But I also was not pro that I don't feel like why could every other punter angle it, get it out, even at like the 12 or the 8? He just kicks it, just right down the middle, and it bounces, and the fucking sure feels like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, so before that play, though, before the punt, they get the sneak. And you made a good point to me because you jumped up, ran to the bathroom, and I don't know, hopefully
I could see from the pisser, I could see there was a flag, and the ref, I was like, I knew it wasn't good. And I could hear you screaming.
Yeah, and Trent Williams wasn't set. It was a very Cowboys-esque penalty. And you made the point, I think a good point, like, why even mess with all that? But it worked. The play worked. And then the next thing you know, they're punting to the Cowboys, and it felt like a disaster waiting to happen. I started thinking through, like, all right, you're going to have to put Kittle in the end zone for this Hail Mary. And then the Cowboys were clearly, they weren't even in Hail Mary position. They were just going to be running normal red zone offense.
Really quick, and for my question would be, why do you have to I'm sure there's some reasoning behind, like a shift to Trent Williams. It's a double-edged.
Why do you have to stop?
Yeah, why do you have to try to like outthink the room on that one when it's just clear everyone in the building knows what play you're going to call? Like it's one of those that truly is, if you're going to run a play, it is 100% the Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback sneak. But if I was going to counter like why he does it, well, the reason they just got 10 yards or basically 9.98 right on 4th and 10 or whatever, 10 on 4th and 11. It's because that's Kyle and he's utilizing. I know he jumped off sides earlier in the game, but part of it is just, I think that place was pretty loud, clearly, is like that they're going to try to outthink you. That's a point of difference today. Like he is smarter than his opponent. And sometimes in football, whether it's high school or even the highest level in the pros, like it can bite you, right? Just because, like you said, when we just hopped on, it's a game of inches, it's a game of milliseconds. Like it's a complicated game, and the farther you can push the complications and you can execute it, the more advantage you have. It's the reason they were even had a chance to KO them. Because more than likely, most teams, look at the Rams. They were just in that situation, ran it up the gut, and punted. So Kyle, had a pitch, and maybe he benefited from doing that play of what he just experienced last week because he was on the other end of it, right? He was on the Cowboys' end of it, just running basic play. Now, there would have been way less time when the Cowboys got it because of the Randy Gregory, what was the penalty they called?
Defensive holding, yeah. Which in some ways it gave the Niners all of a sudden, it gave the Niners more downs, but it kept Dallas got to keep their timeout that they were using on that play. So I know the college rule better than the NFL rule. College, the 10-second runoff or a runoff for when a penalty stops the clock is only under 1 minute. That play was outside of 1 minute, but
it cost the Cowboys 40 seconds either way, right?
But the clock stopped because of the defensive penalty. The Cowboys didn't, and they saved the timeout on that play, so that was kind of crazy.
Crazy. Not a Belichick here with the rules, but that doesn't seem fair.
No. I also, the other rule I started to hate, we can talk about this more later because we're talking about the end of the game now. But like the punter has punted the ball when you rough him. So like the penalty should be on a roughing, back up the return, not the punter gets the ball, the offense gets the ball back. I guess the point is you don't want guys just flying into the punter. But
the rule's pretty sad, and that was I hear you. To me, the last drive on defense, because they clearly were just going to play a normal prevent, and then they realized they were just giving up the sideline, so they went to that crazy sideline defense, and Dak was in a tough spot because I think clearly they're like, well, you could gain fucking 20 yards here, but it's the best thing that ever happened to the Niners because they got to the 20-yard line pretty easily. That's as easy as I've ever seen a team with no timeouts and 30 seconds drive the field. That was a joke.
At least without Rodgers.
Without a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah.
Like Romo made the point there. You can't, Dak, if you're going to do that, you can only take like 10 yards. You can't run so far down the field that now, the umpire's got to come down and touch the ball because you're not allowed to spot your own football. I feel like the umpire, if you go back and look at that play when he respots the ball for the Cowboys to spike and not have enough time, like the play ends, he's 35 yards behind the play, right? He has no earthly idea where that ball's supposed to be. But he comes sprinting up, he takes the ball and like moves it back a half inch just to be like, no, I spot this ball. Because he probably rightly assumes the center's always going to move it forward a foot further than it should be. But that was quite a moment.
He took out Dak, kind of. He runs into Dak. To me, it is pretty basic football 101. Every single time in that spot, you hand it to the referee. You're not allowed to, this isn't golf. You don't get to drop it. They have to set the ball. And he just, I think looking back, like you said, they got a little greedy. And time, they had no timeouts. There wasn't that much time. When I think they snapped, it was like 14 seconds. The greediness fucked them. Maybe that extra 5 yards, because they were at the 20. So what's the difference between being at the 20 and 25? You're getting one shot anyway. The Niners really, really benefited from Dak probably taking an extra 5-7 yards down the field, which he does not need to do because when they got the ball back, all you're going is like, are they just going to get it to like the 50 where he can just throw it up? And I kept thinking CeeDee Lamb, weird deal. Like you said, do you put in Kittle? Do you throw in like Trent Williams? I don't know. I do not feel good with the Niners crew of guys high pointing the ball. At minimum, there's a penalty coming. So
I started thinking like this is going to be, Ambry Thomas's moment to play the ball again for the second week in a row.
Holy shit. But yeah, that was one of the more exhilarating final 2 minutes of a game that actually took 25 minutes I've ever been invested into. It's because it is pretty nuts that at one point in time, the Niners were up 23-7, about almost midway through the fourth quarter, and you're not trying to get too greedy in your head. You're going, are they going to blow this? Are they going to win this game by 20 points? And then Jimmy said, hold up, stop, wait a minute, and made sure that didn't happen.
Well,
the Cowboys are explosive on offense.
You're right. He did make sure it didn't happen, but it wasn't the pick. It's when he missed Ayuk wide open.
Oh,
which was very much like, was it which Super Bowl was it Brady and Edelman?
I think it was Welker, wasn't it?
Was it Welker?
Yeah. I think it was 11. That was 2011.
Was it that long ago, that play? Okay.
I think so, yeah. Because then Edelman wasn't quite in the mix, and then Welker, I think after that year, goes to join up with Peyton, and they had their breakup. But it was like, I remember Welker's arms were kind of small, and he missed them.
I guess Edelman made the great catch over the middle against the Falcons. Was that the Falcons Super Bowl?
Yeah, where they cut it off his face, nose, and
bounced
body.
Around, and three people were. So, it was really the Niners have played now back-to-back weeks. Just the finishes to their games have been absolute.
Part of it.
What's
part
the
of
thing
it is
called that you have to put in your heart to like wake somebody up when you put the needle in?
Adrenaline.
Yeah, EpiPen or something. Like, I don't know, is that an EpiPen or is that the thing?
You know, the thing they put when you got exposed
adrenaline
to the chemicals in the movie The Rock, and you got to put it. You ever seen that movie with Nicolas Cage and The Rock? You know, whoop, and it saves you. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
part of it though. I mean, a huge part of it is their quarterback is the reason this fucking thing is like this. I mean, he is. It'd be like you were driving in a car, and at any moment the guy can be driving like he's Richard Petty, or Dale Earnhardt Jr., and then he can just turn into like a 7-year-old. The pedal's going. He can't touch the brake, but he can kind of steer. At any moment, it can change on the dime. It's really him. Like, to me, if the Niners would have lost that would have been one of the most epic collapses of all time. But it would have been hard for me to pin that on Kyle. Like, Jimmy just threw it right to a guy. I mean, right to a guy. It's like Nick Sirianni. Am I going to put this today on Nick Sirianni? The fucking quarterback can't complete basic passes.
Did he ever shake Bruce Arians' hand?
Do you see how slow Bruce walks up with his Achilles injury?
He's getting his Achilles iced during the game.
Guy, it takes him like 10 minutes to get to midfield. At first, I'm like, what? Why is he walking so slow? I'm like, oh, yeah, he's got a partially torn Achilles.
There was another white guy, short beard, and that I think Bruce thought was. Did you see that? Bruce thought he was Sirianni.
I thought quality control. I did too. And then Bruce he just. That was funny.
Oh man. No, that was. Do you put it? Whose fault is it? Is it anybody's fault? I blame the Cowboys offense. The Cedric Wilson, the third down play where he's looking into the sun in the first half of the game, and he can't see the ball.
No, you got to get blinds, guy.
As Boomer said at halftime, over $1 billion stadium, and you build it east to west. What are you doing? But like, don't you know? Like, it's a home field advantage would be to kind of how pitchers pitch to the big part of the yard. Can we not have a play that has our receivers staring into the sun here on 3rd and 10? I do put some of that blame on. You gotta, it's part of the game here. You got to understand home field advantage. You can't throw your guy into the sun.
Well, haven't the Cowboys been playing these 1:30 kickoffs with Aikman and Buck for a decade? I mean, it's not like, they're not used to playing that slot, I don't know, 7 times a year? I mean,
every game I watch, there's suns in somebody's eyes.
They play in the afternoon game all the time. I'll be honest, maybe I'm just not super locked into Cowboy games at that time slot over the years, just because we've been doing this now so long that so many Niners and Raider games fall at that spot. Like, that usually gets my main TV. I didn't realize that their sun. Did you know sun was a huge issue? Has this been like a thing that's been happening for a while?
I don't know if I knew that. I mean, I definitely felt what game. I think it was a college game this year. Where actually it wasn't a Cowboy Stadium though. It was one of the bigger
It was definitely, maybe it was just perfect angle today. It was bad. Because then the Niners later got a punt, and I was like, oh my God, do not put a punt returner back there. Mm-hmm. This is it hitting off his top of his head, landing in some random Cowboy who makes his career running into the end zone, who jumps into the stands, and all of a sudden the Cowboys win, and that's like the embedded moment in the game.
Did you think the Niners-Cowboys historical rivalry affected the way the game felt?
No, but I'm not a huge like hold on to the past guy in life. So I did think there's a natural pop to the colors on the field with each other that is pretty sweet. But I don't like I'm not like, and I'm watching I can't recommend the Montana documentary enough. But when I'm watching a game, unless there's like previous history, right, a couple years in the past with coaches or players, like to me the Packers and Niners, I'm not going to think like Young versus Favre. I'm just thinking of Rodgers versus these guys recently. So I would just these two teams don't have much history in recent memory, so it's hard to. To me, it didn't do much.
I didn't think so either. Yeah, I didn't think so either. I mean, the game was great for all the reasons it was great, but it wasn't about William Floyd.
Exactly.
Although Charles Haley, how about this always happens. They get the shot of Roger Goodell in the booth, and they're like, there's Roger. As Tim Brown is right next to him, it's just the two of them in the shot. They're like, there's Roger. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Tim Brown's sitting there wearing a Raiders hat. And then Charles Haley, who just is not going to sit still, starts like, I don't even know, tickling Roger, like, because you see Roger goes like, ah, like that. And then it's like Charles's head is who pops it. Charles is just messing with Roger on national television and was sitting in the booth.
Well, I mean,
Roger Clemens is in George's booth.
Looking about this comment right here, Aikman wanted to do this game. I do understand, like to that human specifically, this game is just a major moment in his life. I mean, changed his life, right? 3 straight years NFC championships. They won 2 and lost. Like these are some of the most historic games in the history of the sport. Niners versus the Cowboys, and the one guy who calls NFC games. I actually understand why he's fucking mad. It'd
be like if at Pebble Beach, Nance was doing some other event like across the country during U.S. Open at Pebble or something.
You know what it'd be? It'd be like if, let's say, the Masters was going on, but there was like the biggest European game tournament of the year, and they sent Jim to do like the Euro Tour.
To your point, this is Aikman's home course, basically, right?
Yeah, it's insane,
and it's also Romo's, but Troy definitely feels like it's more his, right?
Well, did you see the reasoning behind it? It actually makes sense.
What was the reasoning?
So I saw it on Twitter when ESPN got the Monday night game. There became or when they added the Monday night game and the 7 seeds, there was like a reshuffling of the setup. CBS put a bid in for $70 million for the extra game, so they paid the most to have multiple games. Like Fox could have bought Double Down, but they paid for double dip because they got.
But how did that determine which game they got, or it didn't necessarily?
Yeah, they had the rights to make the first pick.
Gotcha.
Is what it was. So they paid.
CBS
paid $70 million, and I guess everyone had the opportunity to bid to have the right for this weekend to have the number 1 pick. And
so they picked that game went ahead of the Sunday night game. Then obviously
that was the number 1 pick in the draft,
as it should have been. I mean, like I said a week and a half ago, before week 18, the last time these two teams played in the playoffs, it was 56.8 million people watched it.
Well, you know what? It turns out this game was never going to be on Monday night because they didn't have the number 1 pick, right?
But Monday night never. I know.
Monday doesn't. I know, but I'm just saying, like whoever had the number 1 pick was going to get this game.
Right. It was gonna be Sunday. Which means it was gonna be NBC, CBS, or Fox. Somebody was taking it, right?
Yeah.
Sunday has to get the number 1 pick. It's the best.
The Sunday afternoon game. You're saying?
I'm just saying Sunday is premium versus Saturday or Monday. I think when it comes to playoff.
You think over Saturday night? Saturday night feels
I
sweet,
so.
But you're right. Saturday night is Saturday.
Saturday night's still Saturday, exactly. Sunday that one's built into the cloth of Americana.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like this game did not like bring up these memories of when I was a kid.
No, I just meant Sunday. Everyone's computer programmed to be ready for football Sunday.
For sure, it's why Sunday night probably is the best spot, right? Because literally everyone's at home. The game though really like those colors work on TV. I think the problem is they haven't like the NFL would die to just have these teams. I mean, the Cowboys and the Niners haven't been in the playoffs that often in the decade at the same time. They would. I think they've gotten pretty lucky. Think how many times now the Niners and Packers have played, right?
Yeah.
Jim played him twice. Kyle played him. This is the second time. They've played 4 times in the last 10 years. That's 40%. That's great. Like, to me, that game feels like Rodgers versus the Niners in January. That, to me, this week is going to give the feels, which hopefully I would love to get a fucking rematch next year of that game. Like, that's so would the league. I mean, that's sweet. It does work on TV. Like those colors, to me, it's like the color blend is just perfect.
I know. That's why the Bengals to me work. The Bengals uniforms are so perfect because they're goofy enough to remind you that sports aren't serious. That's the Bengals are perfect. If you watch the Bengals, it feels like if you and I turned on some like, I don't know, some like a soccer game or something where some teams wearing some goofy uniform. It just feels like it's a made up crazy uniform. Like some uniforms are all business. It's like this is sports. Like let it be a little goofy. And it's the Bengals are like perfect. It's orange and it's goofy.
Well, see, one thing with the Niners and, for example, the Niners and the Cowboys, they're old brands, right? The Niners are known like most notoriously for the play in the 81, even though they had 20 years of greatness. The Cowboys own the 70s, and then they had some time in the early 90s. But their colors and just their team, it feels very modern. Maybe it's the stadium, like Dallas. To me, that stadium really works. Raiders and Bengals did kind of feel like I'm watching a game in the 80s. Not the players necessarily, but their colors. It's like, there's something about it. It just feels a little,
By the way,
with the times, guys.
No, I agree. That's why I said change the Raider uniform. And I felt that way watching it Saturday. Like it just felt kind of
meh.
Yeah. Like just give me some 3D and then you can go back to the classics. I'm not saying you can't even, but
he's not saying burn the jerseys. He's just saying, adapt, throw a new pitch.
So, man.
I thought the Cowboy Stadium is pretty sweet for a playoff game. Didn't you agree? Beside the light.
Did you notice though, everybody, the board, obviously like a key to a board is being able to see it from down low. And everybody, when they want to watch a replay, is just breaking their neck. Clearly, it's not angled down at the field. Everyone is just staring straight up into the air. They can't see anything.
Did you know the rule? Because I didn't. I thought it just goes. I was like, dead ball when it hits the thing. And they're like, repunt. When they said repunt, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to get. I never like special teams plays with Hightower. That is always potential for disaster.
Well, you notice like all the kickoffs come to the 5. They make the Niners return it.
Yeah, smart. They were smart.
Like, oh no. And you had texted me. Well, I mean, how do we want to? We're.
Let's dive into the quarterback, because that game to me, he got a lot of credit last week, which he deserved. The grit and the toughness. I rewatched that game several times this week, at least the second half, and it was impressive by Jimmy, just his mettle. But I don't think anyone questions like Jimmy being a tough guy, Jimmy being a foxhole guy.
I mean, he's been kind of questioned before, right?
Okay, but
the notepad last year at the Cardinal game.
It's fair. Okay, that's fair. But so he proved some of that. But he made some great throws in that game. Today felt a little bit more of the Jimmy that I remember before everyone started jerking him off the last week, because it was kind of holding on for dear life. The pick, like Dak's pick was bad. Jimmy's pick was 7 times as bad. Like Dak's pick was bad. That's a bad NFL pick. Jimmy's pick is like something you would watch if you were watching some like backup at UC Davis. It's like how. It's 23-7 in the 4th fucking quarter of a playoff game on the road, guy. To me, it's the timing of this.
Second and 10 in your own territory too. Just out of bounds. He one thing with Garoppolo, he did it today in a big spot, and Romo said good throw it. But Jimmy does not really throw the ball away that much.
It's not his game. He's a gunslinger, but his ball. He has, if you're like a golfer and you just have like a go-to slice and you just play with the guy, it's like he's just going to have the slice, and sometimes maybe it's a little better than others. Like you can tell early on, like, oh, Jimmy's a little high today. And you could see a couple times it was just like,
Early he was on point. Early in the game, he was on point.
Well, but it was in the flow of the run game too.
Yeah.
Like when it gets to a point, as it kind of did, where it's like, okay, it's like 2nd and 10. You're just going to throw for the next 2 downs, clearly. And the momentum is kind of going against Jimmy. That's where it's like, oh, my God, Jimmy, do not throw it high. Do not throw it high. And the other thing, when he throws it high, sometimes it gets tipped, and then it just goes right up into the air. And then people play fucking hacky sack with it. He could have, I mean, there were a couple moments. The one where the guy, like the outside linebacker, maybe was the safety, made a great play, and luckily he just like hit the ground and was discombobulated. That could have been a pick. This is, they kind of won that game, I thought, especially in the second half, in spite of Jimmy. And I'm not acting like he was just a total scrub, but he was, this was not last week. Like, he could not have taken him on a drive, I felt like, the way he was going. And part of that was the Cowboys were getting pressure. And
yeah, I disagree a little, because you know what I always say about Jimmy. I just think it's the same every week. I think it's the same. Some days it's 64%, some days it's 58%, some days it's 72%.
But our guy Schefter said he's back though.
Yeah. Last week he got some of his value back. I think it's the same every week. And I will say this, and I mean this sincerely. One of the things I respect about Garoppolo, he is a roller coaster for us. I don't think he feels it, which is part of what's dangerous about him, right? Like, I don't think when he throws a pick, the next time out, he's gun shy or hesitant. I don't think it affects him in that way, and I give him credit for that. But I think it scares Kyle, and I think it scares everybody else watching it. But there are times where he made some aggressive good throws, multiple third down throws to Juwan Jennings. The first big third down conversion that Juwan Jennings had, which
I'm not saying he can't make good. I'm not saying he can't make good throws.
I absolutely, I know you're not. The throw he made to Jennings, though, outside the numbers, was a rare Garoppolo throw, right? That 3rd and 11 where he hit Jennings outside, like way outside at the stick. The ball had a little hump on it, but it was a really good throw. But then, yeah, there's other balls that just terrify you. And I think he just reminds you often that you are not in control of life. Like, that's the reminder, I think, is just some guys are so in control. You know, late in the Bucs game where there was a discussion going on, like, you got to get Brady out of there. You got to get the starters out of there. The one thing that was clear with them, Brady was not going to take a hit. You know what I mean? Like, they were getting the ball out. Tom knew what he was doing. Tom wasn't going to get hurt because Tom wasn't taking hits. Like, they were fully in control.
And he'll crumble the moment things get weird in the pocket, right? He'll just hit the ground. Like, he's just not, he's not going to throw that pick.
Yes, I don't think Jimmy. I had a buddy of mine text me. He's like, Jimmy's asshole's got to be so tight right now. I was like, I don't think it is. I don't think Jimmy gets like that.
No, I agree. We're in agreement there.
He just sometimes he's a roller coaster, and everyone except him feels it. And I think that's a good thing for the Niners. But that interception was one of the worst. One of the worst. And it
would have been a major reason they lost the game. I mean, the game was even I think
it would have been the number one reason they lost.
Was it Tracy who was like, they're really screaming to get a turnover here? Like, they knew their only chance was to get a turnover. It was 23-7. They were bleeding some clock. You start doing the math. You're like, well, that's two touchdowns and two pointers. Like, you're in the driver's seat. Like, you just keep punting, make them drive. And they're struggling to move the ball. And then you hand them the ball right back. Hand them the ball. That's the other thing. Jimmy's, either his picks are the ones where they tip it up in the air or they hit the guy in his stomach because the ball floats on him. And part of the reason they're able to circumvent this the second half of the year, and this is where, like, listen, if I was another team, I would not trade anything of value for Jimmy. He has benefited a lot.
What does that mean?
I mean, 7th round pick or something, and do a little restructure.
Yeah, like, to me, I would trade to me, a 4th seems, if you're Washington football team or something, you can't get.
But to me, Kyle guy has circumvented so much of Jimmy, and he deserves credit on this. And part of it, he just is lucky they have this one of the best players in the league on their team of just moving 19 in the backfield. They basically now have clearly number 25, Elijah Mitchell, who is a stud, had 27 for 96. And I know the yards per attempt isn't great, but he was running his ass off. That it's you need a couple backs, and they don't have a second back. Well, they do because it's fucking Deebo Samuel. And they've just added Deebo, and Deebo, like, to me, Elijah's a true running back. Deebo is busting these enormous, explosive plays. It's almost like Deebo, Jimmy is getting kind of the Ryan Tannehill with Derrick Henry treatment. Like they're able to keep his pass attempts down. Obviously today they were in the lead, but to me, Kyle is able to just use his run game with Samuel to avoid Jimmy killing them. Like, we'll get into the Packer game moving forward, but like it's the reason it's going to be so hard for them to keep just rattle off 2 straight wins to get to the Super Bowl, because you're just not going to be up 13-0 in every game. Like you're going to fall behind 10-0, and even that they were able to get so lucky last week because fucking Stafford turned it over, because Jimmy was turning it over then too. It's just, you're right. Maybe he just really hasn't been any different at all, ever. He's been the same guy for years.
Yeah. It's why you knew something bad could happen, is because it's the same every game. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but it's never like a game with, sometimes there's games with no picks, but there's never games without tip balls over the middle or throws that could have been picked off, or,
no.
Well,
there was a play today. I couldn't tell, was it a throwback to Elijah Mitchell, or did he just choose to throw it back to him?
I think it was supposed to be like a misdirection screen, and I think maybe he was trying to throw it at his feet, and I don't know. Yeah, it was bad.
See, to me, he was not trying to throw it.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't. The defender was there, and he tried to like sidearm it. I think
that,
maybe
to
the
me,
second he threw it, he regretted
that's a play when you're an 8-9 year vet. It's so easy. Just throw it at the motherfucker's feet. He throws it right to him, and he gets tackled. It's like a 10-yard loss. It was 2nd and 4, and then all of a sudden it's like 3rd and 15. It's like, Jimmy, what are you doing? It's stuff like that I think is equal. Obviously the picks, but Dak Prescott, guys throw picks, even though not ideally in the fourth quarter of games when you got a 2-score lead. But it's plays like that. It's like, Jimmy, what are you doing?
I know
that
was the play
to me
that
was
Romo
one of the head scratchers.
Romo drew up, Kittle's wide open, but I doubt on that play Jimmy's even looking down the field.
Yeah, I don't put that one on. Kittle's way over there. Jimmy's scrambling out here to the left.
Yeah, that one was actually ended up with a field goal on that play somehow, because it was one of the 2 big third and long catches that Juszczyk made and like fought for extra yards, and then they were able to get a field goal out of it. I mean, it turned out taking the points early was, the right decision multiple times. There was one I thought he could have gone for it on 4th down, but he kicked the field goals. Robbie Gould was good. But anyway, back to Jimmy.
Give him his flowers. Robbie was nails today.
Garoppolo was 16 of 25 for 172. No touchdowns and a pick. I had a comment here from somebody. Here we go. This is from Arium44. Next week versus Green Bay, 40 runs, 8 passes.
Yeah. It's
Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo they won a playoff game with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, he's won a bunch now. This is his 3rd playoff victory as the starting quarterback for the 49ers. Like, listen. But here.
He's 3-1 in the playoffs, is what you're saying.
He's 3-1 in the playoffs. But I'm going to pivot to the coach. Kyle Shanahan just had a pretty unreal 7-day stretch for his career resume. We talked about it ad nauseum the last couple weeks. It's not about winning the Super Bowl every year. It's not about getting the NFC Championship game every year. I mean, it's ideal. It makes Andy Reid's career. But, it's about just getting in the playoffs and then winning a playoff game. And in a 7-day stretch, he went from being down 17-3 at halftime, where it looked like the Saints are going to get in, to finding a way to win that game in overtime, and then 7 days later, win a road playoff game as a head coach. Because as time goes on, do you know, until I watched this Montana documentary, that the 49ers turned it over like 5 times in that NFC Championship game in 1981? Do you know who gives a shit? Absolutely nobody. No one gives a fuck. Do you know what people remember as time goes on? Like the win. I don't remember the details of the Packer win on the road with Harbaugh. All I know is that they went home victorious. All anyone will remember in this game in 5 years is that Kyle Shanahan won the game. It wasn't pretty. Now, to me, he was much better than his quarterback. And here's where I'm going to give him credit, too. He's able to win some of these games. He does not have Rodgers back there slinging around, Brady back there slinging around, Mahomes back there slinging around. What Josh Allen did last night, he looked like Marino met Elway, met Brady. Like this, he's doing this despite a quarterback that, like, it's not that trustworthy of a player. And he deserves credit for, like, the physicality and the mindset of the team, because you would say this pretty consistently now for the last 3 years, win or lose, they're a tough physical team. And they are just a bunch of dogs. And that, for an offensive play caller, we see it with McVay. Like, this team's just not that tough. Like, sometimes with offensive guys, like, one thing Andy has always hammered home is he always drafts linemen, offensive defense, because it, like, sets the tone for his team because he's a throwing guy. And it just, his teams kind of have a toughness because he adds personnel that way. To me, there's a specific thing Kyle asked for. They said it tonight. One thing, Romo had a good little nugget that Kyle told him about when his wide receivers block, it adds an edge to your team or something in that vein. And it was like, I think Kyle gets off on having these wide receivers that play like that. And I think it's why he's like, obviously, Deebo, to me, is probably Kyle's favorite player ever. Same with Kittle and same with Juszczyk. But I think Brandon Ayuk is I bet Kyle loves Brandon Ayuk right now. And they clearly love Jennings. There's a toughness to their guys.
Jennings was getting on the field without catching the football for a period of time this year. And it was because he was blocking.
And I think today was a great sign of two coaches. Mike McCarthy's accomplished a lot. He's won a ton of playoff games in his career. He's a Super Bowl champion. You would say over Mike's tenure as a head coach in Green Bay, like his ethos of his teams, and now with Dallas, like there is just a little bit of a softness. Now they got some physical players, but I thought mentally today there was a toughness to the Niners at the Cowboys. And it's not like the Cowboys don't have stars everywhere, right? It's not like they don't have legit guys. Would you say the talent today was pretty even? Coin flip?
Yes, but I think the 49ers had the best player on the field.
In
Deebo Samuel.
I'll give you that. I thought, as the game went on, Parsons is making plays left and right. Like, they got Amari made a sweet touchdown. Like, Dak makes $40 million a year. I don't think there's a team in the league that would take Jimmy over Dak. So they have the advantage at quarterback, even though Dak looked a little weird today. But Kyle beating Mike McCarthy in a game where his team was just ultimately tougher is just a huge moment for his career resume. Right? Yeah. Like, you look back at Andy's early career, or Sean Payton, like, road playoff games. I said it before, like, to me, they're worth more than a win. You should win at home. Winning on the road, you shouldn't. Because more than often, what percent of road playoff teams are ever favored? Very small, if ever.
Well, they usually have, you're on the road for a reason. Not like the regular season, which is the schedule puts you there. You're on the road because you're the lower seed. You're the worst seed. I think for Kyle, he has to take, I would imagine, particular pride. You wouldn't want to do it this way, but to win with Kittle not making, Kittle with one catch, but more so with Bosa and then Warner both going out for the game. Your two best players on defense. And, this goes back to the development of this defensive line, which...
Bosa missed the whole second half.
You can't say. I wondered when Bosa went out, is this going to affect them? And then when Fred went out, I wondered the same thing. Like, is this going to affect them? Thankfully, no one had to get carted off. And as it turned out, I thought Fred for sure was an ACL. It turned out Fred was back on the sideline with an ankle that maybe he'll be able to play next week.
I thought 2022 season gone.
It felt. I was like, are we watching Navarro Bowman again?
That was my gut feeling too.
And they overcame it. They were not. I wouldn't say Kyle's team was buttoned down. Like, they made their share of mistakes, but the Cowboys were a complete mess. Like, Niners had 9 penalties. That's a lot of penalties. Dallas had 14 and critical spots too. And I do think coaching was a big factor. And I think this goes back to your point when I kind of cut you off when you said, was the talent basically even? I think I think you're right about that, right? The talent with these two teams probably, I think the Niners, well, I don't know. Talent's probably even if we really broke it down. And Niners are better at running back, probably, right? But my point is, and I think this is kind of what you were getting at, coaching was one of the major differences in this game today. It just was. Up until that last drive, you would have said D'Amico was really good. And I know it's, kind of prevent defense.
It is a tough spot. Yeah.
Yes, totally. So I thought coaching was a big part. And Mike McCarthy's team ultimately looked the way I think I come to expect his Cowboys to look, which is kind of messy. And they feel like they are without a process. Like, the Niners process is pretty clear. You know what I mean? Like, what a Niners win looks like is pretty easily defined. What a Cowboys win looks like is a little messier. And I think the Niners definitely benefited from the fact that they were playing the Dallas Cowboys today.
For sure.
I don't know. I guess we'd kind of gone through some of the matchups over the past few weeks, but yeah, they benefited from playing the Dallas Cowboys today. But to your point, they were still on the road. They were still playing an explosive team. They were playing a team that I feel like can take advantage of your mistakes because they can be explosive offensively. But what did I say on the last podcast? The Niners have held opposing quarterbacks under their passing average in 14 of 17 games this year. And they did it again today. Dak was under his 278. Today he was 254. I don't know what the betting number was, but that's what his average was, and that's what his number was. So, I
didn't think he was very good.
I agree.
I didn't think he was very good.
The ball he threw behind Wilson in a big spot.
Bad.
Yeah, threw a few into the turf.
He doesn't have a great arm, so when his feet aren't set, which on some of those throws they're not because he's moving around. Like he can throw the lollipop when he's scrambling, kind of like the Stafford throw, but he is not Mr. Pinpoint throw darts. A huge angle of this game, and we touched on it a little bit coming in, is that for years, Dan Quinn was kind of laughed at for not being like, Wire's defenses suck so bad. He's supposed to be this defensive coordinator. Like, that's the reason he got the job. And Kyle versus Dan Quinn, because I won't put, like, the defense like that. We know, like, McCarthy, that's not on McCarthy. The reason those guys are jumping off sides is because Dan Quinn's Pete Carroll telling those guys to pin their ears back, right? That's their style. Get upfield. That's all week I heard. Get upfield. Be aggressive. Cause havoc. Kyle just, like, advantage Kyle. And it should be. Like, there is not a team in the league that would hire Kyle Shanahan or Dan Quinn over Kyle Shanahan. And I know Dan Quinn's about to be the Denver Bronco coach, but it turns out it's because his fucking buddy's the GM. Like, the just notion. And again, he seems like a nice guy, and he'll probably be a solid head coach, but he is not Mr. Schematical genius. And you saw today on the other side, like, D'Amico is young, figuring it out. He's got a ways to go. Their personnel in the back end isn't great. But, like, Kellen, a couple times they tried, like, trickeration. Remember, they tried a trick play, like, the second play of the game. And granted, it probably would have hit, but I think that's a pretty hard play to run the second play of the game.
It was a third and long.
Yeah.
You're talking about like come across and throw it.
Fucking airmailed it Jimmy Garoppolo style into the first round.
I'm just saying
it
was a third down, so it was kind of just like a desperate play. But yeah.
But you said the rhyme or reason with their stuff. It's just they feel a little like the Niners. They'll have some penalties. They can be sloppy with their penalties. False starts. Obviously, their secondary, who was not a disaster today, partly because Dak was bad.
They didn't really get. It was weird.
Yeah, and I think I saw some people saying like Ambry was better than Mosley. I think they hammered home. We're not going to give up deep explosive plays. So you can get mad at guys for like giving a 7-yard cushion in some easy out routes or comebacks, but I do not think they wanted to give up the go route down the sideline. Because especially once you're up, like that's the only way for them to get back is to give explosive plays. So you'll give up the out or the comeback all day long. But I just, the Niners just have the superior coach. It's period, point blank, end of story. I mean, it's just not even arguable. Cowboys would trade in a heartbeat. And I think you're going to hear just a lot of people, what do they do? Do they let their coordinators go? Like, hell, would you rather have Dan Quinn as your head coach? Now, I don't know if I'd go that far. What the hell's McCarthy's accomplished more than Dan Quinn. But, Kellen.
Would you rather have Kellen? I mean, Romo's talking the whole game like one of them. Now, maybe he knows Quinn is gone, but he's talking the whole game like they're losing coordinators. Does that mean both? It feels a little soon for Kellen Moore to become a head coach, but
it doesn't feel like Kellen's a lock, but who knows? There are a lot of openings right now. Have you noticed there's 8? I mean, there's a lot going on.
I did a basketball game on Saturday with PJ Carlesimo, John, and he says to me, he's like, "What's going on? Like a third of the NFL coaching jobs are open." I was like, "Yeah, it's a lot." I was like, "And the Raiders are probably going to come open."
Where's he live?
Seattle. Great guy. No, it doesn't feel like a lock, and I think they're in a weird spot now. Like, how is Dallas? One thing Romo said during the game was, the future is now for Dallas. Like, the future was the future a few years ago when Dak was still on a rookie contract. But the future is now. And I don't know what Dallas does. How does Dallas if you're them, I would change the coach. I said I would. I said they hired the wrong coach last year after week 1 of the NFL season. Now, I've kind of had to back off of it during the course of this year, but they hired the wrong coach. I think they're a mess. They're not a button-down operation at all. They don't. I think one thing you can say pretty definitively for Kyle Shanahan is, especially on offense, but I would say this, on defense for the most part, he maximizes the talent. I don't watch Kyle Shanahan teams and think somebody is underachieving. It's why I think the Brandon Ayuk situation at the beginning of this year was so bizarre. Because that's if you're a receiver, a quarterback, an offensive lineman, a tight end, a running back, whatever, you're an agent for one of those guys in the draft, you want Kyle Shanahan to draft your guy. I think if you play defense, you want to be on Kyle Shanahan's football team. Like a lot of guys play, and players seem to maximize their value on the Niners.
I agree.
And the Cowboys do not. Like the Cowboys, it's just they don't maximize. They do not maximize their talent level. It doesn't feel that way, at least. And I think I would say that's probably one of Kyle Shanahan's calling cards right now is his teams. It felt like if they had missed the playoffs this year, and this is where the line is very thin, they would have underachieved. It's why beating the Rams was such a big deal last week. And this goes back to your original point about just
margins are thin, guy.
It's right. This is why you're saying like making the playoffs and then winning a playoff game. You just don't get playoff level rosters. It's just hard with injuries and just the whole thing is hard. And the Niners have a playoff level roster. And I think the fact that they were a little up and down, they're very up and down this year, makes this feel kind of crazy. But, there's a reason that people were correctly saying over the last month of the season that Niners just aren't a team that you want to see in the playoffs. And that doesn't mean they're going to beat the Packers. It doesn't mean they're going to the Super Bowl. But they maximize what they have. And Dallas does not. And I can say now, after several years, pretty comfortably with Kyle Shanahan, that he maximizes what he gets. He maximizes his players. And I think that is, isn't that the definition of a good football coach? Now, you got to win. That's the number one definition. But
it's back. It's why this year was so big, and it's why these last 7 days were so big. It really came down to the last 7 days. It came down to that second half, and then it came down today, kind of holding on, because that's what they were doing. Was kind of holding on, right? They were not. The offense has sputtered. It was clear that Dallas. I think a big reason that his yards per carry. Like, he busted a lot of big runs, but toward the end of the game, like, I would say that fourth quarter, it was hard for him to get 10, He was not about? Elijah Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they knew what was coming because he was not going to throw the ball. And even when he's in shotgun, they'll just hand it off. And I think Kyle then tried to manipulate it with the two of them back there. He'd bring Elijah in motion, and then he'd kind of go like Arena League, bring him back. I think he was just trying to fuck with them, but he was running the same plays over and over, just hoping to be able to get a first down and bleed some clock and just find a way to get to the final element of the game. Because I think what you said about Jimmy, the moment he throws a pick, the person he rattles the most is the play caller, who spends all week, who looks like he doesn't sleep, who, just looks like he goes through a lot, putting this thing together, him and McDaniel. And I think he gets confident when Jimmy's on in some games. Like, I think that first quarter he goes, okay, but all it takes is the one throw, and then I think it just rattles everybody. Now, and sometimes there's a lead up with Jimmy, right? There's that ball over the middle that gets tipped and and everyone's heart drops. But then there's just the pure pick that I think really throws off the head coach. Because you saw today, like with Dak, Kellen, they just call pass plays nonstop, right? They'll just spread it out, throw it. Now, I know they were down, but if you watch the Cowboys all year, like their strength is all their wide receivers. CD's a stud, Amari's a stud, and they just spread it out and throw it. And that you watch Dak, you're like, well, should he really be doing it like this?
They could use a run game.
Should he be playing like this? Like I'm looking at his numbers again. They were down, but they weren't down 20 points. A lot of the game, they were just down 9 points. Like, you could have just let it play out.
They did have that drive after they got down where they ran the ball a lot, and then they ran that kind of play action to, was it CD? They feel like they should be able, Dallas, to just pick up 7 yards at a time in the air. Like CD and Amari, and Schultz, and the other tight end, what's his name, Jarwin? Like, it feels like, dump the ball off to Zeke or Pollard, who can get a screen and go 15. They're just, man.
If I told you coming into the game that CeeDee Lamb would have one catch, I would not have believed you.
Well, he wiped out. The two of them got wiped out by penalties. One from his own penalty. I know.
What was his penalty? Oh, he wasn't set.
He wasn't set. It was the same as the Trent Williams penalty.
I felt like CeeDee Lamb would be a type of guy that would destroy the Niners.
I know.
And they did get Amari on the one on 24 where he just, I mean, that was pitch and catch. That was a joke. But when that happened, I'm like, God, I think these type plays are going to be there more often. They just never were. And part of it, like you said, is the line. They are really just, I mean, Armstead is playing pretty well, and just their other random guys make plays. DJ Jones makes plays. Their linebackers fly around. I thought for the most part they really open field tackled well today. The Cowboys not as well. Now, one huge point of difference is there was a play early in the game when Juszczyk got on Van Der Esch and like shoved him back. Their linebacker play with the Cowboys that to me is a huge separating factor. Niners linebackering play and Cowboys linebackering play. Van Der Esch looked terrible. He did make the one big third down tackle. But there were just plays earlier in the game when they got down. It's because he was kind of he's not a great space player. If he can just trigger and run right at you, yeah, he's big, he'll make a tackle. But he is not Mr. like fluid in space. Like the one thing with the Niners, all their guys are pretty athletic in the open field, right? And that saves them. Just like they gave up a lot of like 5-yard completions, but it's like whatever. That to me is a huge like okay, that's fine. Because the Niners, when I run for 5 yards on you, it's like goddamn, 2nd and 5. When you just throw 5 yards on me, it's got the little Texas Tech, like whatever. You're not like demoralizing me. You're just playing pitch and catch, like whatever. If you better not drop one of them, because then all of a sudden it'll be 3rd and 6. You know that happened to the Cowboys a lot.
Dak was 53.5%.
He was terrible.
23 of 43, sacked 5 times. I think this is one of the keys. Like the longest play was 38 yards, and that was to Schultz, and that was that the end of was that the play at the end of the game? Was that a 38-yard play?
I don't feel like it was, but I
don't think so either. But anyway, by the way, TJ Watt just had a scoop and score for the Steelers as we're recording. If you're listening to this, you already know what happened in the Steeler-Chiefs game. But the Chiefs just double fumbled.
Who did it? Mahomes?
Well, it looked like it was like a wildcat zone read something. The ball pops, gets picked up, but then tries to get advanced, and then it gets fumbled again, and then TJ Watt picked it up and scored a touchdown.
Do you think
we're not going to
wants to see the Steelers win?
Yeah, the Bengals? No, who would it be? The Bills?
It'd be the Bills. It'd be Steelers, Titans, Bills, Bengals.
So I guess the Titans want to see them win?
Yeah, the Bills would host a playoff game again. Yeah, the Bills want to see the Steelers win for sure.
Feels like we're a long way away from that.
It's 7-0.
And the number was 12.5, right? On that game.
That was big.
That game was big.
That was big.
Number on the Eagles-Bucks game should have been big. I mean, Deebo Samuel feels like he's been around forever. Anything else you want to make a point there on Kyle?
Probably about it. You want to tell the friends about Indeed first before we get into Deebo?
We could rattle about stuff all day. This show is brought to you by Indeed, John. Yeah, let's do it. Indeed it is. Indeed.com/ham.
Yep. Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay, guy. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites, hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you every step of the hiring process to find great talent. If you need people to hire, go to Indeed.com/ham. They'll sponsor your post. You get a short list of quality candidates with Indeed Match. You can sponsor your post. Get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. It's so easy, guy. It's so easy. Get some help.
I think the key, like the Niners are a great example. Having players that fit your culture, having players that fit your style. But what do teams do before they draft a player? They spend months, years scouting the player. You did it, talking to a strength and conditioning coach, right? Interviewing people around him, interviewing him, subjecting that player to all kinds of, reviews and tests and evaluations and 40-yard drafts. Indeed gives you just about every evaluation except the 40-yard dash, okay? The right moves can change everything for your squad. And the same goes for hiring with your company. But who do you trust when you want to make a deep playoff run? If you're hiring, you need Indeed. Get your star. You're the star quarterback. You need an offensive line. You need a Deebo. Find your Deebo. Indeed.com/ham.
Hiring right now with $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/ham. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/ham to claim your $75 job credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/ham. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
If we did a sleepless night rating on all the players in the NFL, non-quarterbacks, okay? So the guys that are most likely to give a defensive coordinator a sleepless night, Deebo's going to be really high on that list because he is not a trick play running back. Like, not only is he an elite receiver, you don't have to prepare for 1 or 2 running plays a game from him or some weird trick play from him. And I know he's difficult to defend as a running back because he doesn't just score on, red zone, we're at the 4, let's put Deebo back there. I did the quick math, John. His average distance on his scoring touchdowns that are rushes is 16 yards. So I think for most teams that probably qualify as an explosive play, a rush play of 16 yards. That's his average rushing touchdown distance. The touchdown he ran in today, Sunday, was a little more dramatic than most of his, but they're usually about 15, from the 15 to the 20, kind of edge of the red zone, baby zone, kind of a pitch. Exactly. Weaves it. For those of you who can't see John, who just did the hand gesture, kind of weaves it outside, maybe cuts it back, gets a block on the edge, and then beats somebody to the pylon. This one was a little more dramatic. But 16 yards average, and I think it's, 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns this year for Deebo, but also an elite receiver. You can trust him. In any moment, late game, you didn't have any hesitation when he tries to fight for extra yards. The play on 3rd and 11, the second that play happens, a run play on it was 3rd and 11, right? 3rd and 11 with the game on the line, the play that he was truly an inch short. The second you see that play unfold, you got a shot at a first down. You were yelling it as we were watching the play. The second you see that kind of Deebo loop, you see the blockers line up, that Deebo Samuel's going to have the chance to pick it up, and he almost did it. I mean,
technically 3rd and 10, but it felt like a long 10.
Like a long 10. If you said PTPer baby in honor of Dick Vitale, the list of PTPers in the NFL, I mean, he is on the short list.
Well, what's funny is, and if you have Comcast, you get free Peacock. Watch the Montana doc is really awesome, and I've lived, born and raised Davis, California, the 49ers. I mean, I actually understand watching this. I wish my dad was still around because he was adamant till his dying days how good fucking Joe Montana was. And when you don't live through it, your natural inclination. When I was a kid, I argued young, and definitely in his later years, we argued like Brady. You watch that and you realize Joe was a stone cold killer. But there was this core group of guys that were just all-time Niners. And until Dwight Clark was never on the level of Ronnie Lott or Jerry Rice, but he was equally as important when you talk to him. Just like with fans, he was just a core member. Dwight Clark was a member of the crew and a core, 4 or 5 of the guys. And Deebo, to me, is just already an all-time 49er. I wouldn't put him like Rice, Lott, Montana, Young level yet, but his talent, I don't know, I've never seen anything like it. And part of it is I'm so glad that he's on this team that is kind of known historically for being just having progressive offenses and doing things that people haven't seen, because that's what they were doing back in the 80s. And I feel Deebo is kind of Kyle's member of, because Jerry didn't show up. I think sometimes you forget this, but they had already won a couple Super Bowls. And Freddie Solomon's sneaky baller. But Deebo is just, I don't even know. I mean, there's not much precedent for his comp. What is he? Even he said, Grant asked him on Friday, what are you? He laughed. He said he was a wide back. And he's smart. You do not say back wide or something. You put wide receiver first. You got contract negotiation. But I think he takes pride in it, and it's clear there ain't going to be an argument on him. he's going to get, to me, the conversation starts around Amari's number, right? 5 for 160 guaranteed. Like, that's just like the starting point. But he's not Devontae Adams. And Devontae is one of the greatest, and we'll see him this week. I mean, Devontae's gonna go down as a Hall of Famer, and Deebo might as well too. But Devontae's an outside wide receiver. Like, Deebo is doing things. How many wide receivers? Keenan Allen and Devontae too. They couldn't do what Deebo's doing. They could not do it. I would say the only guy, and he's on the. I turned off the TV, but Tyreek can do some things that you can put him in the backfield and he can play running back. He did as a
Jamar
in
Chase?
College. His body type feels like he could.
He's stouter, watching him this year than I realized.
When you say Tyreek,
I think
it's kind of just short, stout, but he's so fast.
Yeah, yes, they're a little different, right? In that Deebo's a little more physical.
Chief Storm back.
I think back to the Thursday night game, we talked about A.J. Brown or Deebo, right? Like, Kyle Shanahan would rather have Deebo, and I think he fits in the category of square peg, square hole, or round peg, round hole. He and Kyle Shanahan are such a match. And a coach's job is to find what a player does well and maximize it. But, I mean, this is a match between a player and a coach that is just too perfect. We might be watching the most perfect player for Kyle Shanahan that Kyle Shanahan will ever coach.
Well, for example, back to the Montana doc, like, Joe Montana really made Bill Walsh. Like, does Jimmy make Kyle, or like you said, is Deebo kind of making Kyle? Like, really getting to see what he's been able to do. Like, how many coaches would have this in the bag? I don't know many. Because part of it, Guy, most of these guys that we talk about, these offensive guys, they don't love running the football. Like, deep down to his core being, Kyle Shanahan loves running the football. Loves it. Like, it's his favorite thing to do is call a run play. And even today, like, I'm watching the game today thinking, Kyle, and he did it with Deebo a couple times, like, when you have a lot of edge speed, and the Cowboys, they have elite edge speed. They have all these defensive ends who are good in space. They're athletic. They're fluid. It's hard to run your tosses to the edge because they're fast, explosive, big. They can shed blocks. And it was hard, right? It was hard to get going. But you just keep cracking, and eventually maybe get a crack in their armor, where I think a lot of other coaches, they just would throw the toss. They would stop running the toss, right? They would stop trying to get to the edge. But it's such a big part of Kyle's. It's his play. With this team, like, they've had different plays before, more of a stretch zone with Mostert, but I think he feels very comfortable pitching it to Deebo and Mitchell. And I saw that McDaniels went on a rant about the pitch sometimes that's not a pitch, but just a direct pitch, and why you do it to stop. And they've added these elements to everything, but Deebo's ability to do that is it makes sense why Mitchell can, right? Mitchell's a really good running back, and running backs can do that play. It's crazy how comfortable this 19 is doing that. Like, we know how good he is running the slant route, breaking tackles, getting in the open field. Now Ayuk is starting to look like a little skinnier version of Deebo in the open field. But goddamn, how's he so comfortable running the football? I don't get it. I've been watching football for a living now for over a decade. Never seen a player like this.
And you can't say, well, he was a running back in high school, because most guys were running backs.
Everyone is. Yeah.
He was a running back in high school. I think he likes it. He had 25 rushes his entire 4-year. He was a 4-year player at South Carolina, Deebo Samuel, in college. So it's not like, this was a visual projection for the Niners. And, he's not been running the ball like this, but they ran him 14 times as a rookie. I would imagine most of that was, kind of end arounds. If we went back and looked, I don't remember a lot of this type of Deebo running.
Wait, you weren't watching South Carolina, Kentucky?
No, I'm talking about his. Sorry, I said freshman year. I meant his rookie year in the NFL. In 19, he had 14 rushes.
Remember, he'd have a lot of those coming in motion really fast, and they'd hand it to him really quick. That was a go-to play that they probably ran. How many said? 14?
14.
159
yards and 3 touchdowns, by the way. So Kyle was like, great, 10 yards of carry with this guy? I think his comp is Draymond Green. Now, he does a thing like at the most elite level, right? Which is he was third in the NFL in total yards this year, Deebo Samuel. But I think what you're starting to see is like Draymond, a lot of people are going to get comped to him without actually doing it as well as he does it. It's hard to be, what's the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Draymond Green's an exception to that, right? He's not a great outside shooter, but for the most part, what makes him so special is that he's so good at the multitude of things that he does.
I saw him score 32 points Game 7, 2016. He hit like 8 or 9 threes.
That's right.
He was on fire.
You know, I think Draymond, I saw somebody tweet, and I don't know if it was in relation to the Bengal game to Jamar Chase. But
he has a bad disc. Did you see that? A sneaky drop by the Warriors today? Mid-49er game. They just threw that out there. It's like, you sneaky bastards. You can't.
I did see that. But somebody tweeted, like, every guy, player runs a jet sweep, broadcaster. Reminds me a lot of Deebo. I don't know if that was a Jamar Chase. I don't know who. But to me, I see a lot in basketball with Draymond. Where, like, there's always, if you go back, remember Denzel Valentine, every 6'8" guy that rebounds is like, who's your game? Like, I'm like Draymond. It's like, yeah, but the thing that makes Draymond special is there's only one guy who really pulls it off to the degree that he does. And there's just, like you said, you can take a running back and put him in the back, a receiver, put him in the backfield and run some plays for him. But he still has to be as good at it as Deebo. 16 yards per rushing touchdown is what Deebo averages with multiple explosive rushing touchdowns. He's just so unique. And I think what makes him unique is we're already seeing it. Like, there's going to be a lot of talk about this guy can be that. It really probably is what Kyle envisioned with Jalen Hurd, right? And it just turns out.
He clearly wants to have a chess piece that can do both, because then he can. It's not like he wants to replace his running back. He wants to use them both so you don't know what's coming, right? Because you really saw that today with Mitchell, where they would go that set where Jimmy's in the shotgun, they're both next to him. And you're like, well, he could throw wheel routes to them both. He could hand it off to either guy. Either guy can kind of lead block because they're both physical. It does add an element to the offense that is pretty stupid, right? Because we're hyping up Deebo, and rightfully so. Elijah Mitchell's a really good runner too. I mean, he's a natural downhill breaking tackles.
Smith at all?
I mean, didn't Emmett win a Heisman and was pretty good all-time leading rusher? Yeah, but I mean,
they were never going to give Elijah the Heisman, John. They never gave him a chance to win it.
To have a game where you run, God, the Niners ran for 170 yards today, 169 to be exact. But Deebo 72 yards. This team, but this is where, like, I think a lot of, and I know you were tweeting or texting me, and people were like, "Where's Kittle? Where's Kittle?" Part of what makes Kittle such a great player is, like, when they're running the ball down your throat, him and 44 are cracking skulls. And hiding the edge. Like, you couldn't do what they're doing without those two guys.
And you are also defending Kittle the whole time in the pass game.
Wouldn't you say part of the deal with the Cowboys is like, well, why don't they run the ball more? Well, yeah, they got 5 offensive linemen, but they don't really have a fullback, and their 2 tight ends just kind of look like receiving tight ends.
How about the play when they put 2 offensive linemen in the backfield?
That was sweet. I was like, why don't you guys do this more often? And then I realized if one of those guys rolls an ankle, you just lose a guy immediately. It's probably a little risky, but I did like that play, and I'd imagine Kyle was like, hey, Mike, make a note of that thing. Can we get a still shot of that for the plane ride home?
Yeah. I'm gonna do whatever they just tried to do, but I'm going to do it better, although the play worked.
It did
for the
work.
Cowboys. Yeah,
what is Deebo's comp?
Somebody said Anquan. He's faster. He's just more unique than Anquan. Yeah, he kind of looks. I understand he looks like Anquan physically, but yeah, I mean, I think you see more guys like him in college, where like one player has a physical superiority over everybody else. But this is the National Football League, John.
Yeah, National Football League.
I don't know who. Somebody mentioned Percy Harvin.
Well, I do think that the contract negotiation, he's becoming more running back. You just know the way the Niners work. I mean, if I'm Deebo, like, stop calling me a running back. Do not call me a running back. Hey, Kyle, you can keep handing me the ball, but, in about 2 months, my agent's going to meet Parag at hotel whatever in Indianapolis, and I don't ever want you to bring up the word running back, because the
problem is they're going to be like, well, our projections, you're going to get hurt in the next 2 years when we up your 25 carries a game.
Percy would have died to be this good in the NFL.
Eric says Deebo's comp is a bowling ball.
One thing the Niners,
Patterson, even though he's a running back now.
This is where this crew of guys deserves, Kyle and John, is they've just littered this team with just impact dudes. It's honestly why Jerry doesn't get totally shit on as a GM, because you watch the team, you're like, God, they got a lot of good players, right? It's not like they're undermanned with talent. The Niners' talent, to beat the Cowboys today, you needed talent everywhere, and
they're without two of their most recent first rounders, right? Who's
that?
McGlinchey and Kinlaw.
McGlinchey, we noticed him, but Kinlaw, yeah. I mean, you're at your right tackle. You drafted 9th. I think would they like a redo on that?
Yes,
maybe.
Yes,
but Kinlaw, you could just always use enormous defensive linemen, right? I mean, even though you don't really notice him being gone,
he's got to play. They're dealing. But this is my point. Is just like they have created so much depth with talent that they are down two of their first rounders, and they still are not. Sometimes you lose a couple of first rounders, and it looks like a team is lacking first rounders. But.
Well, here's what I would say. To me, this win of Kyle's 3 playoff wins, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Dallas, this was the most impressive. Would you agree there? Just the way they had to do it.
Yeah,
it was the road.
I mean, it was the diciest game, right?
Yeah, I mean, they kicked the shit out of those two teams, especially Green Bay. It's
funny, you don't get credit for kicking the shit out of somebody, because it's like, well, it wasn't that good of a game anyway.
I think this Dallas team, like that Green Bay team, was dramatically better the following year, aka last year.
Yeah.
This Dallas team was better than those two teams, because remember that Green Bay team, they drafted Jordan Love 3 months later for a reason. Like, it looked like Aaron was slipping. They were weird. I think the way we think about them 2 years later is dramatically different than they were that in a vacuum. And Minnesota, no one took seriously, even though it's like, Diggs, who you hear Phil Simms, he's like, nice to have money. When they're like, how did Diggs is he just in Buffalo? That's not an easy flight. Even private jet, what do you think that is? Like 3 hours? That's a trek. Dallas is not close to the Northeast. Like, it's pretty far.
Yeah. Did he left last night? I guess he probably had time to get there today.
Yeah, I mean, he probably left this morning. I was thinking in Buffalo, like, did you throw a party last night? Like for Josh Allen? Pretty late,
and your game's about to. You gotta start getting ready for your next game. Although you don't know who
you're playing. You see Zach Taylor. The Bengals went out. Zach Taylor went to a bar, gave the ball to the bar. Like, everyone's sitting there, like, this ball's for you, Cincinnati.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. Just hit the bars after playoff wins. If you're like, this thing with like Kyle and McVay's crew, it's like, I don't know if they're just tapping out and going to bed. It's not like they got, their 3 grandkids are coming over. It's like, we're 39. Like, let's go hit the town.
McDaniel and Soder.
Who's Soder?
Dan Soder. The guy who used to Mike McDaniel's childhood friend, the comedian. Billions.
Oh, yeah. How funny is that relationship? And that guy's a diehard Niner fan?
Pretty funny. A couple other things from the game. Bosa, Warner, special teams. Where do we begin, John? Let's start with special teams. You texted me at one point during the game, the punt before the fake punt. You're like, fake punt's coming, guaranteed. Which it really, when you think about it, it'd be malpractice not to stress the Niners special teams.
You could feel a fake punt coming today, right?
Because they were going to need it, right? Yeah.
They were going to need it. Bromo's jerking them off all game, talking about how they completed 4 of them this year. I mean, it's something Bones Jones is just watching with the Rams. Like, they run fake punts. When they completed the fake punt, I mean, let's face it, the special teams today, I even text you, like, let's go over all the things. They catch every single punt at the 5-yard line. Like, the rule of thumb, in my experience, around NFL coaches is like the 10 or 12-yard line. You let the ball hit because it's going to bounce into the end zone. You don't catch the ball. You don't fair catch the ball at the 5, 6, 7-yard line. It doesn't make any sense.
And watching football, I think we can pretty much confirm everyone basically stands with their heels on the 10 and fair catches or lets it bounce. Yeah.
Lets it go. So they do that all game long. So every single one of their drives. But, okay, I don't even want to jump the shark. Tony Romo said that Kyle Shanahan told him. You tweeted it out. What did he say? What did Feely say?
After the roughing the kicker, Feely said, we talked to Kyle Shanahan. He told us we're not trying to win the game on special teams. We're just trying not to lose it, which is not a vote of confidence.
Do you think a lot of coaches talk like that? You've been in these meetings. Would
No.
they mention that? Is insane to say that out loud.
No, what they always say is it's all about all three phases. They don't go, it's really about two phases and then just not peeing down our leg in the third phase.
So he's not even hiding it anymore. Telling Jay Feely, who's a special teams guy, which I would imagine God, my coach is saying that over the years. Hopefully not. They catch the punts the whole game. I mean, every single one of their drives started at the 5-yard line because the guy literally caught it at the 5-fucking-yard line. They roughed the punter, and the fake punt, they literally have punt safe
On a 4th and 20, by the way.
And Josh Norman just sprints. Where was he going?
I don't know. They only got one replay of that play, and it was from behind. You can't really see. But I think it was clear. And I texted you right away. The Niners, you could see it. As soon as the play started, the Niners were prepared for the fake.
Yeah.
They were prepared for the fake. No one rushed. No one retreated. Everyone just sat there. But Josh Norman was in single coverage. I don't even know who was that out there. It was a good throw by Brian Anger.
Great throw.
Well, I mean, the guy was open by 50. Even if he was playing as a gunner, he was 50. He was 10 yards off of the guy. I don't understand.
I feel like this gotten personal. It's obviously become a thing on social media. I had a couple people that are on other NFL teams that followed me on Twitter. Like, I'm ready for your Hightower tweet. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not. When you think it's coming, that's when I stop. Like, it's now. Like, I feel like I'm kicking the dead horse here. Like, listen, this guy Hightower's made a lot of money, so who knows? He makes. I would imagine he might make $1 million a year. It's a going rate for special teams coach. There's no way they can bring him back, right? You just watch the way yeah.
Wouldn't shock me if he's still on the staff, but
what would he be doing? Carrying
I don't know.
Boombox?
There's made up. There's made up positions on every staff, so you just pay a guy, have him do something else.
It's pretty crazy. You would agree, though. It's nuts how every game consistently it's like that glaring.
Yeah, because you said this after the Seattle loss in Seattle when they ran that, was it Travis Homer fake? They've become a mark on special teams. Their special teams have become part. Like if you're the Packers and you don't have something next week,
they're bad on special teams too.
Here's the thing about the Cowboys. Special team, and I love this about special teams coaches. They're mad scientists. They have all this time to. The crazy thing about that play is the Cowboys nailed it and then screwed it up.
What were they doing?
The Cowboys got greedy. They have the shot of the sideline, and Bones is like, "Stay out there." And Romo,
what were they trying to do? Get Kyle to call timeout?
Romo was all over it. They were trying to get Kyle to call a timeout. And Kyle very smartly is like, "Okay, you guys want to run a play with Brian Anger in the slot? Go ahead, fine." So then, all right, guys, stay out there. Then they rush him off, rush the next group on, and then they get a delay of game. So this is luck. This is why you were lucky to be playing.
McCarthy.
Niners took it, but you're lucky to be playing the Cowboys today because they are not a button-down operation. They're mojo moments. They're not ready for the mojo moments. Even when they're ready for the mojo moments, it was bad.
Like you said too, the kickoffs, they were clearly trying to get the 49ers to kick. They were trying to kick it off right between the 5 and the goal line, so the guys would return it. They are clearly, Hightower is the Niners mark. He's 100% the Niners mark. And it's crazy that, like, I would imagine everyone on the sideline is screaming, punt safe, punt safe. And you can say, well, fucking Josh Norman's on the players. Why always, in every single one of their units, are there several guys that don't know what to do, that have no clue? Clearly, Josh Norman's a good example. He has been benched. He is no longer playing on defense. So what have they done? Like, hey, Josh, you're grown up. This is pro sports. Like, you have to play on special teams, which for a large part of his career, he never did. He goes over these scenarios, you would think, in practice. Doesn't he tell whoever the punt returner is, Benjamin, do not catch the ball? I'll even give you a benefit of the doubt. It happens one time. The next time, bro, let it go. Does he not say anything to the players? I'm so glad Jay Feely said it. I mean, Kyle admitted it. Like, yeah, he basically said, reading between the lines on that comment, our special teams suck so much ass. I'm on the sideline because I'm the play caller as well, and I'll be honest, I don't know that much about special teams. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it doesn't royally fuck us.
When I heard that, I thought I would not try to return punts.
No, I would scrap it all. I would do everything the most basic level
And I
as
certainly
possible.
wouldn't try to block punts.
No blocking punts. Just let them punt it away. I'd run punt safe every single time. No more trying to block punts, especially when you have a lead. God, they were up multiple scores.
Yeah, I just the play just popped up in my timeline. Josh Norman's playing the slant or something. I don't even know what. Like, he's going the other direction.
He takes off toward like Lubbock, Texas. Where does he go? He goes at an angle. It'd be one thing, right, if he just bailed. He went at like a 45-degree angle somewhere. Like, what is he doing? But that falls back on the most basic elements of the profession. You just tell someone, like, hey, bro, do you know what you're doing on this play? We're running punt safe. You just stay next to him. Because what's a punt going to be? They're either going to run it up the middle. Our guys are ready for that. You don't have to worry about the run out here, right? You just have to worry about this one guy who might catch a pass from their punter. Not Aikman, not Romo, not Dak. The punter is going to throw it. And he just sprinted. I mean, that's the one thing I've never seen, guy, is the angle in which the guy takes off on. You wouldn't take that angle in a normal punt because you would go straight.
Well, again, if it was punt coverage, he was not blocking the gunner.
What was he doing?
I don't know. I more likely to be the Niners special teams coordinator next year, Brad Seeley or Rich Bisaccia.
I would go for Rich.
Yeah,
feels
Rich,
like Brad, Vic, Harms gets the band back together. That's got that feeling.
Then I would think, there's always this Stanford Raiders. I know the Raiders have moved, but nonetheless, Stanford Raiders, Cal, Bill Musgrave's their OC, Niners. There's just this rotation of guys who are like, I got a house in a nice area. I'd love to come back. And they're just around. So I know Seeley's been out of the game for a couple of years, but I don't know who Harbaugh's short list is, but that's going to be
Harbaugh has, I'm going back to the league and I'm getting the group back together written all over him.
Yeah. When is Harbaugh's press conference? Wednesday?
Well, remember he got in trouble, so he'll interview, T. Martin again come Tuesday, and then Harbaugh will be announced Thursday.
We interviewed Charles Woodson. Actually, we interviewed Charles during the Week 17 game, just in the suite. We talked to Charles, so we're good there.
Yeah, we saw the Texans win Hines Ward. We said, screw it. We'll just
Wait,
interview.
the Texans interviewed Hines Ward?
Yeah, you might have missed that yesterday. They interviewed Hines Ward.
What's Hines doing?
Florida Atlantic wide receiver coach, I think. I also think everyone's shitting on him. I think he's interviewing people for like other positions. Like he's just utilizing this.
Yeah.
I don't think he's interviewing Hines Ward to be his head coach, but I think he's utilizing this to get in front of some guys. I thought Brian Flores is the heavy favorite to be the head coach. Harbaugh, I think, is the favorite to be the Raiders head coach.
Well, he's my favorite.
Harbaugh's coming.
I expect. I mean, again, I'll say this: the initial report from Bruce Feldman was Harbaugh, and then the immediate thought was, is this just leverage to use for the Michigan contract extension? Which tick, 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 tick. He still doesn't. Chip Kelly signed an extension. Jim Harbaugh still doesn't have an extension. Chip's back. Yeah, Jim has not signed an extension yet. So if he's using the Raiders for leverage, which has been done before, he hasn't done it yet. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, that'll be big stories this week. Obviously, huge, massive stories this week. I think the same way we said you can't beat the Cowboys without Trent Williams, you cannot beat the Packers without probably both those guys. Certainly, I would say without both of them. You need Bosa and Fred Warner to go win in Green Bay.
I think clearly they avoided disaster with Fred Warner because, like we said earlier, when he was laying on the field, which at least the video shot they had with him in pain, it looked like he was gripping his knee, and I think everyone thought 12 months, he's gone. I'm just thinking, guy, this is middle of January. I'm starting doing the math. I'm like, holy shit, see ya. But to me, the Bosa thing, he got rocked. I mean, he got hit hard. Who knows? These you have no clue. Fred, I think will have some idea. They didn't show him coming up the field. They definitely showed him walking behind the sideline. Clearly, he got a concussion and he couldn't pass, and they didn't let him come back out. But now it's just can he clear before? Because if he clears, he'll play. If he can't, he won't. And their D-line's good. With him, they're very good.
I don't. Whatever. It's just I'm probably making a point just to make a point. I mean, maybe it matters if you play Saturday or Sunday. In this case, ideally, given you got two of your star players on defense, you'd like to play Sunday, right? Not play on a short week if you're the Niners. But
feels like they're going to play Saturday night, even though I want them to play Sunday.
Well, why do you think that?
Well, I guess they just played Sunday. Not that matters. I don't know. They just put the best game. I mean, the best rating games is. You're right. Saturday night is not the best rating game. Is Sunday afternoon. And the games this week are at 12 and 3:30. So you could easily just put them at Fox at 12 o'clock, couldn't you, with Buck and Aikman? Wouldn't you just go Chiefs-Bills Saturday night?
Yeah. So you'd go Bengals
Titans
Saturday afternoon.
Bengals Titans, yeah. Which is sneaky. Everyone's going to talk shit about it. Not terrible. I'm interested. Henry's back. Fantastic. Joe Burrow, I like him.
Well, I think the Bengals can win that game, right? I mean, I'm not on a limb here.
Well, because you can't go the Monday night team, whoever wins that game on Saturday night. They're out.
Can't do it.
So that game to me, Bucks versus the winner of that is on Sunday. So then you just go. It's just.
So do they usually try to mix NFC and AFC? We were talking about. I feel like they do,
but I don't think it mattered. They didn't this week, so.
Yeah, but there's more games this week.
Feels like they would want Packers-Niners Sunday afternoon. That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
That is the play.
Would that be the biggest rating game?
Yes. Even though I think Bills-Chiefs is going to be big.
Bills-Chiefs would be big.
I don't want it Saturday night. I'm a little nervous that it's going to be Saturday night.
Yeah. Listen to the chat, guys. Has it already been scheduled? What is going on here? Bills at Chiefs. Is this a prediction from JJ? Bills at KC Sunday night. LA, Arizona at Tampa Bay Sunday. I know you can't put the Rams or Cards on Saturday. That much we know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But why wouldn't? I guess the question is, historically, it would make sense before your conference championship game for both teams to play the week before on the same day. But it feels to me like normally it's the opposite, that you get one AFC, one NFC game on Saturday and the same on Sunday. Okay, those were predictions.
You got a basketball game Saturday night?
No, I'm free. I just Sunday. I like the extra day. I do the
too.
appetizer.
Listen, I think the move is probably just go both the AFC games on Saturday and then the NFC games on Sunday. But do they want to blow Brady and Packers-Niners all in one day when you can kind of spread it out? Do they even care? I don't know. You're right. Sunday is a much better consuming day for the NFL than Saturday. And Saturday's not bad.
Saturday's good, but it's just Sunday. More people. Saturday people, just few. Your casuals are just getting stuff done. Not me. I'll be here. They can count on me. I'll be locked and loaded, whatever time they want to play the game. But
Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy had the decision to run a quarterback draw in the final play of the game. We felt good about that. We talked to our analytics guys. That's the play they recommended, so we went with it. Process over results. That's what we always say. There is nothing that bothers me.
You think Jerry says that?
There is nothing bothers me more, process over results, when you lose in a results-oriented business. Like that is the dumbest. ESPN.com might jerk you off for that statement, but that is a moronic comment. That's just so dumb.
Well, my question is how did you even get through that process in that moment of the game to have that level of a conversation among that many people in that situation? You can't say it was the best option and the right decision when you lost the game. It didn't work. So maybe you hadn't repped it well enough. It failed. It failed.
I'd also say with whatever they had, 14 seconds, a lot was going on. So at the time, I didn't quite know what was going on. But looking back, that's pretty risky, right? Especially the way they were going to play. They're going to give you 10 yards like you said, the refs are all on the corners. That's looking back. That was a very, very risky play. The return on investment on that play, given that you don't have a timeout. To me, timeout, no brainer. No timeout. Because wouldn't you say that calling games under 18 seconds is always risky, middle of the field? Because basically it just comes into a middle of the field completion. To me, isn't the rule like 17, 18 seconds? It usually is like that's about as far as you go, just because it gets dicey. I feel like just as a consumer watching games on my couch.
Yeah.
College is different.
If you have to
in
get
college
the ball
is different.
down the field.
Yeah, I mean, college is different because he would have got the clock would have stopped. In the pros, the clock doesn't stop, and then clearly, I mean, I guess I got to put some on Dak. He kind of freaked. You have to hand it to the ref. It's football 101 in the NFL. You hand it to the ref, right? Hand it to the ref. He spotted the ball.
So Dak ran for 17 yards to the 24-yard line, right? He did not need to run for 17 yards. That play occurred short left. So there were 14 seconds on the clock. You do 14 seconds. You cannot run a 17-yard play with 14. The ball was like the Niners called a timeout before that play, right? So there's 14 seconds on the clock when they snapped the ball. I can't imagine they told Dak to run for 17 yards with 14 seconds left.
Well, the Niners, their defense, they gave him so much green turf, he just kept on going. He's like, shit,
I get it.
Going.
But to me, like maybe, do you try to get to the sideline there? I don't know if he could have. I don't
think he could have got to the sideline, but I think where they got destroyed is there was just no one around him, and Dak just kept going. And I think those extra 3 or 4 steps clearly cost them the game. Because even if he would have taken, let's say instead of 17, 14 yards, just a couple less steps, they would have got it off. Because what did he miss it by? Half a second?
Millisecond, yeah.
Yeah, not even. So I think the Niners' weird prevent defense thing they had going on, which they were kind of adapting on the fly. At first, they were like, no deep passes. They're like, no sidelines. They didn't really know what to do. It's pretty clear. It's not like they had George Seifert calling their defenses. That one was like, are we sure we want to be doing this? Do it again. Change it up. They changed their prevent defense mid-drive. I've never seen that because they didn't do pressures. They just changed the defense, but it was all prevent.
It's like football coaches have figured just about everything out except for how to end a football game. Coaches know how to get leads. Coaches know how to play from behind. I don't think the sport has figured out how to end a game. Just how to end it. Like trying to leave a party and you're saying bye to 17 people. The next thing you know, you've been there for another 45 minutes.
I hate that.
The football people don't know how to leave. How do I escape? You got constantly. You see it. We saw it today. We saw it last week. You see it all the time. All right, we've got the ball. They have 3 timeouts. We're trying to end the game. We're trying to win the game, but we're trying to get them to use their timeouts. And you play a complete different sport with like 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in a game where you're just playing the clock. It's a different sport than you play the rest of the game where you're trying to get yards. Now you're kind of trying to get yards, but you're also trying to get them to use their timeouts. But the math. Like, these run players are going to take like 4 seconds off the clock and then they're going to call a timeout. And we're just accepting that we're going to give them the ball back with whatever the time is, right? So they don't know people don't quite know what to do there. Like even Kyle ran a sweet play on 3rd and 10 with Deebo, but there's the way the Rams did it last week was, obviously cost them. And then the prevent defense thing is like, nobody knows what to do. Nobody, the earth has not, we have put people on the moon. We cannot figure out how to play defense at the end of the game. To the point that, like you said, we don't even blame defensive coordinators for doing it. Like, just give it 15, give another 15. Get it, like the field is 300 yards long. The field, they got like 80 yards to go. There's just 15 yards, stop the clock, 15, stop the clock, 15, stop the clock. And that's where I go back to the Cowboys.
Might have been a fake quote. Might have got due, but still.
What? By what?
Just that the process over results. I'm not sure that he said that.
Okay, but nonetheless, I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't change my point, which is that again, we don't even blame coaches for not knowing how to do it because it is really challenging. But it's like you'll get the way you play the game, the whole game, you stop doing it. You held this team to what they have 7 points at halftime.
Yeah.
Right. One of the most explosive offenses. One of the most explosive offenses. Now I get it because what happens to you when you play normal defense? You might get beat over the top with a bomb. It's happened to the Niners.
Guy, they had 7 points midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
they were not scoring any. They were not doing anything until Jimmy threw that pick. They were not.
I'm not blaming D'Amico. I'm just not. We don't have a good way to do. No one has figured it out yet.
Well, should they have just run normal defenses, or is that too risky?
I think it's pretty risky given the proclivity to give up a one-on-one bomb. I knew this. You and I both on the fourth down were like, "Do not blitz, and they did it, and it worked.
I think it's different than going prevent defense with $1:40 left, even if you got to go 70. They had 30 seconds left, no timeouts. So you're just thinking like it's impossible. Like and then Romo's like, well, if they just get 10 yards every 4 seconds, start doing the math. You're like, God, and then they start getting like back-to-back 10 yards. You're like, start doing the math. You're like, maybe they can't. What? No. And then that's why I think he had to adapt because I do think it was the right play based on the time. They had to go the entire field. They needed a touchdown, and they had no timeouts. Where I think they screwed up is you got to keep them in bounds. 25-yard play does not kill you if you tackle them in bounds. They got out of bounds multiple times.
Well, John, they had their first play was the kind of the trick play, and that took 8 seconds. So from 32, they got the ball with 32 seconds left. Okay. At their own 20. So you're right. Like prevent makes a lot of sense. They run the trick play for 9 yards, 8 seconds. Then they go Tony Pollard for 10 yards to midfield. That play took 6 seconds. Then they go Schultz for 9 yards. That play took 4 seconds. So like the plays were getting faster. And then the Dak play. So the Dak play was the longest play of the whole drive. It took up the most time of the whole drive was the run.
But it kept him in bounds.
Because it kept him in bounds, yeah.
That's where, to me, the drive, why everyone was about to have a heart attack, or as I on several text threads, I think I'm going to have an ulcer, is because you just have to keep them in bounds. You could have given up a 30-yard play, but it was like, are they just going to let these guys just get 15 yards and go out of bounds, or 12 yards and get out of bounds? Like, that was kind of crazy. Wasn't even anyone close to him. That was one of the
when
more.
They lined up.
I've never.
They looked like ushers at a wedding. Like, why is everybody lined up down the side?
They freaked out mid-drive. They were discombobulated for sure, and maybe their discombobulation, if that's a word, threw off the Cowboys.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Is the good news with Dallas. If you were that kind of unsure, uncommitted against a really good team, it would bite you. The good thing with Dallas is they are 2 steps forward, 1 step back as a team. They just can't get out of their own way sometimes. And this is why I say, like, the Niners won the game. It was impressive. What they've done is really impressive. But part of it is they played that team. And the Niners are, for the most part, a buttoned down. Like, they know what they're doing offensively. They know what they're doing defensively. They know what their deficiencies are, and they try to stay away from them. Dallas is not that.
It's going to be harder for Dallas next year. First place schedule. Division will still not be very good unless Howie trades for Deshaun Watson.
Mike Zimmer is the coach.
4.
How about Mike Zimmer for the Cowboys?
DC?
No, head coach.
Did you see the story that came out of Mike Zimmer?
No.
I guess like Wednesday going into the last week of the season, like Wednesday's usually the first day the players get in. I guess he went on this weird like diatribe in his team meeting about all the incidents that have happened to him in his coaching tenure for the Vikings that have gone wrong, like Adrian Peterson whipping the boy, Teddy Bridgewater's leg falling off, just all these, specific things. And I guess the players were like, is this guy making what's going on here? I guess it was really weird.
It is weird.
But I think when you know you're going to get fired
back. I mean, I think we all know what that's done.
Yeah, I was kind of on board, but then Spielman, and then I saw the numbers. I was like, there's a lot of money.
But they were like,
all right, things just get weird when you're about to get fired.
Yeah, get fired with grace.
Yeah,
get fired with. Grace.
I could see him taking over the DC with the Cowboys when Quinn leaves. And then they'll be like, should they just give Mike Zimmer the job? Like, would his team be tougher? It could get weird. Because it's not like he's accomplished nothing as the head coach.
Yeah, to me, you'd make him the head coach and have him call defense and have Kellen Moore be the offensive coordinator.
So you just pay but Mike Zimmer's a pretty angry guy. That was another thing. Like Eric Hendricks said there's a lot of anger in the building.
I think the Cowboys could use a little of that.
I do too. I'm not necessarily.
CeeDee Lamb goes the false start on himself, wasn't set or illegal motion, catch, immediately head tap out of the game. Like, nah, I don't know, man. I think you got to stay on the field for that one. I love a good receiver head tap.
I love a good one. Like my bad, Doc. My bad.
And I just, you know what? I screwed up. Let me remove myself. I'll punish myself here and come to the sideline.
Yeah, Bill, red Gatorade. I need a squirt. I'll just open my mouth. I'm opening my mouth. Just squirt it in. I love that. Guys go to the sideline, open their mouth, dude squirts in their own Gatorade. It's like, bro, you can grab the Gatorade bottle. I get it, like if you're super gassed and you just run over. But like when the guy's standing there and he hasn't done that much, and he just like puts his mouth back.
How about you just have to walk around like this, and then someone just goes, and they don't say thank you. You don't. A waiter comes and refills your water. You say thank you. Somebody give you a personal Gatorade squirt, and you just treat them like.
Do you know where I'd be terrible at that? Like I'd have no problem if it was like Trent Williams or Bosa. I'd like give them a good squirt. Guys that were pissing me off, I would like spray them in their eye. Be like, oh my bad, I missed you. I'd spray it all over their face.
How about dudes who haven't played? Like, hey man, you haven't played since like that special team snap back in the first quarter. You can just grab your water.
Yeah, I mean, give me a break. One thing the Bengals, no, it was the Bills. The Bills, because it was so cold, they had chicken broth. Like it's like been their thing. So you just have chicken broth that warms you up.
Like in bottles?
Well, they have like a container of chicken broth, and you can
just consume it?
You just put it in a little cup, and you take a sip. It's like, like the water, but they just have chicken broth as well.
Probably, got
it was
salt
cold.
in it. Put salt.
Did you see the viral video of Mac, like Josh trying to break down a play? And Mac just starts looking at his own breath, not paying attention to Josh, because the breath is pretty cool. It's like so thick.
I don't even have to smoke.
Yeah. I'll give Mac some credit. He it wasn't his fault. I mean, I think people on Twitter, I forwarded you the tweet that it was the perfect offensive game. They did not fumble. They did not turn the ball over. They did not punt. They scored touchdowns on every single drive.
That's pretty incredible.
In the freezing cold.
Yeah. Domination.
He was the kid from Fireball. I saw some Fresno State people we follow like, how did Tim DeRuyter? He wanted to walk on. Tim DeRuyter would not let Josh Allen, not a scholarship, walk on. All he wanted to do was walk. There's nothing like that, like when you miss on a player.
Yeah.
He just wanted to walk on. It's easy to play that game because he wasn't even that great at Wyoming, But you would like to have that guy on your on your walls now, right?
I mean, scoring 47 on the Patriots in the playoffs is a pretty in the list of accomplishments.
He looked fucking dumb. And he looked like a player you would create in a video game. He was and that's
kind of is, right?
Even if he wins a Super Bowl or whatever, he might not ever play a game that good. I mean, he was at one point in time I looked up
308, 5 touchdowns, no picks.
Say that again?
21 to 25, 308, 5 touchdowns, no picks.
There was a lot of this is for 20 years of ass whoopings. And it was the one thing I think that even today, the Cowboys Stadium was cool. I would really say the Bills. I think the Chiefs had it those first couple years of Mahomes. It's still really cool as games going on now, but there's something special when it first happens. That was their first home playoff game with fans. Like last year, they got 6,500 people. It felt like a religious experience for the group. The Jill Kelly, I follow her, Jim Kelly's daughter. She tweeted a photo on Friday night. It was basically the 30 for 30, the whole group. It was like Thurman Thomas, Steve Tasker, Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly, and it clearly a bunch of other guys from the team. And it was like, this is a pretty cool. This is sweet. This is really cool. And they were all there. I saw what's his name that's on Good Morning Football with Peter Schrager was tweeted out a photo. He's like, I just took a whiskey shot with Jim Kelly in a 30-point blowout against the New England Patriots with the Buffalo Bills this is the coolest moment of my life. Basically, like, is this real life? And there is just, it felt like you're watching LSU or a Michigan. It's just, this meant a lot to these people.
Didn't you feel that way watching the Bengals too?
A little bit, but there's even a higher level with the Bills.
I agree with that. The Bills, because think about their fans. They lost 4 Super Bowls. Was it 4?
4. Yeah, 4.
4. They lost 4 Super Bowls. You know how fans argue and they're like,
"Oh,
we're better than you now." Yeah, but we still have 86. You know, they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
That's pretty nuts.
I mean, from a fan pain standpoint, and then on top of that, they've been, like, to your point, the Bengals this is fresh for them. Like, they're just, where they are right now, it's already a win. For the Bills, they're in the window. They've paid Josh. Like, it is now.
They've been good for a couple years.
They've been good for several years now. Yeah. So it is now. But the Bengal-Raider game was... See, betting the under and rooting for the under can be exhilarating, John.
It's not... To me, it's heart-pounding, though. The difference for the Bengals, by about year 2.5, you realize you had something sweet with Josh, but he was a work in progress. I'd say pretty immediately the Bengals fans, even before he got injured last year, were like, we are on a rocket ship with this kid. Yeah. He's awesome. If I was if you were a 10-year-old kid right now watching football, it'd be hard to pick like a favorite player. I think I would be like a huge fan of like 5 guys. Herbert. Maybe that's just how kids are. But like Burrow's now, the thing,
Deebo just cool name. He'd be one of them.
Everyone would love Deebo. But like, what quarterback would you choose? It'd be like, I love Joe Burrow. Then you watch Josh Allen, like those 5 touchdowns in the cold. Like,
I know.
This guy's sweet.
As a kid,
from California, from here.
As a kid, I loved the Bengals because of the uniforms. It might be Burrow. I mean, or Herbert. Their uniforms are cool. You're right. Lamar. We've got, and this happens. You're like, oh, who's going to be the next stars of the league? Mahomes, Peyton, and Brady. They're old. And I mean, right now, Lamar, Herbert, Allen, Burrow, pretty good young crop of not just really good, like superstar quarterbacks.
Superstar.
And Jamar Chase and him, like an immediate fan.
Sweet.
What did you think? What did you think of Derek's game? Like, what did you think of Derek watching that?
I thought he was good. I mean, I thought he played winning football. That final drive, they fucked up by snapping, clocking the ball. They didn't need to clock the ball. They gave up a down. So yeah, if I put on my Charles Davis and
I think
Ian Eagle's dad.
I think Charles said, like, you got to play. You can run a play here, and the Raiders spiked it.
Well, then the final play came, I think, with 14 seconds. Like, they had time to spare. If you just use it like a math equation, you get 4 shots at the goal line. Well, if I take one of the shots away, I'm removing 25% of your opportunity. That, to me, and it's the red zone is naturally hard, I think, in the flow of a game, but in a spot specifically where it's like they can set their defense, the field is wider than it is long. It's really hard. To me, the last pass wasn't even going to be in the end zone. He got tackled and he threw a pick, but it wasn't going to be short.
Davis and Eagle did the Bills game. Oh, it was Tirico and Breeze.
Yeah, you're right. It was Breeze. Actually, I thought was pretty good. I didn't have a beef
I think Breeze has a lot to say. I think in a good way. I mean, like, watching is open. He's still a little uncomfortable, and I think I've noticed that watching him do studio too. He's still a little uncomfortable, but he's got things to say. Luckily, I think it really helps him that he works with Tirico, who can kind of clean everything up.
I think that's going to be the crew here. If Al goes to Amazon, I think you're looking at I think Chris, this might be his last couple weeks again.
I think so. You're probably right. I do not think Breeze is.
I'm not saying he is, but you know how these executives love these names.
Yeah, I just think Chris right now is far superior, and that's not a shot at Breeze at all. I think he's pretty good, given that he never really did it. And I think he could get there, but I think Chris is pretty damn good. I'm with you. I thought Derek, 29 of 54. He was not the problem. They felt to me, though.
I don't want the other guy's better. He's just a better player.
Yeah, no, but I think you said it well. Like, Derek played winning football. I think for the most part, he did. I just had a moment to look. 7 penalties. It just felt what is, and this is why I think they got to go to Harbaugh, and they just don't have. There's not like their defense actually has. You give them a lot of credit. Think about how bad they were on defense not that long, like last year.
The reason they were in that game is their defense actually is pretty respectable.
Yeah, but I think they're offensively they're just missing something that puts them over the top from a coaching standpoint.
But Boger's crew was pretty bad, and then they were this bad that clearly Schefter got the go ahead. Like, put it out there, they're not working any more games this year. Like, how often does someone tweet that out in the morning after a game?
Yeah, they were. You were right. I mean, you texted me like, wait till you watch this. I saw some of it. They were like, part of the job is just to be able to present to everybody like, we're in control here. And they were not in control of that game.
He's like, Mom, he mumbled a couple times, like, what'd you say?
Well, there was one, I think Charles Davis said it. He's like, he just stopped. He was going to explain. It was the play where there were multiple penalties. But then there was like a pre-snap penalty that wiped out. What was the play? Maybe they were offsetting. He started to explain why they reached the conclusion they reached and then just stopped. It was like, nope, the more I say, the worse. And Charles, like, I think he was going to say more, maybe Ian Eagle, because he stopped his sentence like on an up, like it was not a period, but he just walked away. Like,
then it started snowballing on them. Then their calls would be wrong, like it was a catch, and they'd call it incomplete. And then Brian Edwards would be like, and clearly the NFL would be like, it's a catch, and they would just be like, overturn it. It snowballed on them. They had lost control of the game. And I Googled it mid-game, like, how?
Sorry, not Charles Davis, Breeze. Yeah.
He's 66 years old. Like, obviously, there are some 66-year-old guys that can handle it. He is done. Like, it's time to put him to pasture. It's over for that guy. It's done. You cannot run him out in NFL playoff games.
Tirico was really explaining. He's like, when you see these guys, and it was a great point by Tirico, when you see these guys, like, all just kind of, they weren't talking to each other. They're just talking. Like, now they can talk to one another in that. But you're right. They're talking to the league. And the league, there's always these rules, like with officiating. Like, if a play's not reviewable, but there's an egregious error, they always have that in the like rule book somewhere. We can step in and correct an egregious error. What did you think of the was it a Renfro catch incompletion play?
It was right. To me, it was the right call.
I agree. It was the right call in that he didn't complete the catch by like the rule. But okay, so full stop. Like, that was not a catch. We've established what he did. He didn't make a football move. Good analysis by the game official there that was helping. But to me, it was like, it's a catch. Like, that is a catch. Like, he had possession of them. I don't need to make a football move. He was holding the football. He had both feet down.
But I mean, the rule's a rule.
No, the rule's the rule. No, totally. The rule's the rule and whatever. But that was one spot where I was like, oh.
But one takeaway I had from that game, too, is like, these teams were actually much closer competitively than like, it's not like the Bengals are that much better than the Raiders. Now, the Raiders just do it with, like, grit and grime. It's not an easy watch anymore with their offense struggling. I mean, they just don't have the offensive players. But they're able to just kind of muck up the game. A lot of it has to do with their defense.
Yeah.
But they were kind of all heart and grit, which I think I saw Derek's quotes, like, this is not the best team I've ever been on, but by far it's the closest team. You could tell, like, they played well as a group. But you're right. Like, under no circumstances would I hire Rich Biscaccia to be my head coach. I'd give him the option if Jim wants to keep him, unless Jim wants to get the band back together. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be the next head coach, and I think that's going to be a really big deal for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I do too. And I don't like using the word deserve, but I used it last week. I'll use it again. I mean, Rich Bisaccia deserves to be the special teams coach for the Raiders, and I don't think it'd be a hard sell. I mean, obviously, I think it'd be good for the organization. It'd be good for the locker room. It'd be good for Harbaugh. It'd be good for everybody, for him to still be on the team. But and I think he deserves it. He deserves an extension. I mean, he did a very good job this year with them. But I think they're just missing a little you know what they miss? They missed Gruden's offense. They missed some of that on offense. And I think
I saw some people saying that at the end of the game they missed John. Like, that was pretty egregious to snap the ball, or I mean to just give up a down. That was crazy. It wasn't 10 seconds, it was 30. What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
And I would imagine he's being told in the ear, like, snap the ball. I'm going to give them the benefit of the Derek the benefit of the doubt on that. Like, snap the ball, or, spike the ball, spike the ball.
100% they're telling him that.
And it was a major error, especially at the 10-yard line. It'd be one thing at the 5, 10 it's not easy to score second and goal at the 10.
No.
Want to go watch second half of this game?
Yeah. And have we hit anything else we need to mention? I mean, we'll be back this week. I don't. Well, we'll talk about what our schedule will be this week in terms of. We did a couple YouTube only shows last week. We'll probably continue that this week. But it's a big week. Everyone's talking.
Let's keep the train rolling, guy.
Should we come back Monday night after Rams Cardinals? Maybe. We'll see. All right, we'll discuss that. We'll offline that conversation.
Let's just do it like we did last week, like 3 or 4 o'clock.
A pre-gamer? Yeah, we could do that.
But not just go live at like 3:30 or something.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. Share it with your friends. Whatever they like. Hopefully we can be here for everybody. We will be. And holler at your boys. Have a great week, everybody.